One of the first events in transgender history was the Compton Cafeteria riots in San Francisco in 1966. We see similar events in 1969 with the Stonewall riots led by prominent trans women of color such as Marsha P. Johnson, Sylvia Rivera, and Miss Major Griffin Gracie. In 1987, gender identity disorder would be added to DSM as a psychological condition. Multiple murders would occur, including Rita Hester in 1999, whose death would inspire Transgender Day of Remembrance. The Transgender Law Center, the Sylvia Rivera Law Project, and the National Center of Transgender Equality would be founded in 2002 and 2003. California would become the first state to mandate transgender healthcare coverage in 2005. In 2009, the murder of Angie Zapata would become the first case in which murdering a transgender person is considered a hate crime. In 2014, the Department of Justice ruled that Title VII applied to claims of discrimination based on gender identity. The Department of Health reversed the medical policy and now covers gender-affirming surgery as of 2014. This is just a small taste of transgender history, and more will be discussed as we dive into the discussion of inclusion policies within higher education for transgender students. Current laws and policies. This map indicates those states, including the District of Columbia, which have anti-bullying laws, utilizing terms such as bullying and harassment, which specifically protect students on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity, as shown in green. The second map details those states, including the District of Columbia, which have non-discrimination laws which apply to schools and protect students on the basis of sexual orientation, as shown in blue, or sexual orientation as well as gender identity, as shown in magenta. This last map shows those states that have no promo-homo laws, which legally keep educators from discussing topics and issues around the LGBT community, including sexual health and HIV information. This is indicated in red, while those in gray indicate those states that refuse to list sexual orientation and gender identity within their anti-bullying and discrimination laws, leaving cases up to a judge's interpretation of the law. Specific California laws. Tom Amiano is an American politician and LGBT rights activist in San Francisco, California, and serves as a member of the California Legislative LGBT Caucus and was a Democratic Assembly member who represented the 17th District. He was one of the writers and sponsors for Assembly Bill 1266, which passed on August 12, 2013 and became effective as of January 1, 2014. AB 1266, also known as School Success and Opportunity Act, requires that pupils be permitted to participate in sex-segregated school programs, activities, and use facilities consistent with their gender identity, without respect to the gender listed on the pupil's records. Title IX and enumeration. It is critical to understand the importance of policies utilizing enumeration. Enumeration is a list that contains all items or parts of a collection. Without the use of listing out specific identities, policies and laws are left up to interpretation by an institution's administration. Title IX is a great example, as it states, "No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any educational program or activity receiving federal financial assistance." The generalization of Title IX's phrasing, "on the basis of sex," leaves many unsure of who it protects and often leaves transgender students outside of that protection. A transgender student in Virginia, Gavin Grimm, has just won a lawsuit against his school district. A federal appeals court ruled in favor of 16-year-old Gavin, reversing a lower court's decision. Grimm claimed that the school board violated Title IX, a law banning sex discrimination in schools, when the board prevented him from using the boys' restroom. Since this decision, the U.S. Department of Justice and Department of Education's Office of Civil Rights has released the Dear Colleague letter on transgender students as a joint guidance for schools across the nation. Under this guidance, it explains that schools receiving federal money may not discriminate based on a student's sex, including a student's transgender status. The guidance makes it clear that both federal agencies treat a student's gender identity as the student's sex for the purpose of enforcing Title IX. The guidance explains that schools must 1. Respond promptly and effectively to sex-based harassment of all students, including harassment based on a student's actual or perceived gender identity, transgender status, or gender transition. 2. Treat students consistent with their gender identity, even if the school records or identification documents indicate a different sex. 3. Allow students to participate in sex-segregated activities and access sex-segregated facilities consistent with their gender identity. And 4. Protect students' privacy related to their transgender status under Title IX and the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. As a current transgender student, these policies and lack thereof affect my experience in education. Many states still do not have specific policies for trans students. As well, the federal government has yet to take any official action. It feels as if many of these laws are still considered new and therefore not taken seriously or enforced in a manner to keep trans students safe. I believe there is still a long way to go beyond simply using correct name, pronouns, and bathrooms for transgender students.